This week on Rockstar Superhero. When the North meets the South, great things happen. Giant Walker, a killer and original quartet from Guildford and Newcastle, have seemingly figured out the entire music business from top to bottom. They haven't even released a song yet, and people are talking about them. So what do? Write great songs? Check. Connect with a well-known management company? Check. Play shows and blow away your contemporaries? Check. Just don't ask them for commitment on their release schedule because they'll button up like a Sunday school dress. That's all you need to hear to motivate you to listen to this show, I guarantee you. And you know you want to. This is my super fun chat with the entire band, the very friendly Giant Walker, on the Rockstar Superhero Podcast. Who started to put this all together? How did this all happen?
Well, we all went to college together in Newcastle, up north. We all went to rival colleges, we should say. Ooh. So Alex went to Newcastle College and we went to Gateshead College, and they are located at opposite sides of the river. So yeah, we went to college, and it's kind of split up how it was actually. So us three, we went to Gateshead College, he went to Newcastle College, and never met. Yeah. We didn't meet in Newcastle though, which is the weird thing. And then we all moved to the south to go to a place called the ACM, Academy of Contemporary Music in Guildford. Nice. And we met there basically. So we had to travel like 300 miles away from home.
Wow.
To meet each other somewhere completely different.
Does that also explain why Alex is sitting in his own little box down here?
Yeah, because he's in Newcastle.
Oh, okay. So it's Newcastle upon Tyne, right?
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm obviously not from the UK, and I don't necessarily understand how North versus South culture works there. But I imagine it's like the States. You know what I mean? Sort of almost like a big cities versus rural, or posh versus working class. Am I completely ignorant, or am I on the right track?
No, I think you're pretty much on. Yeah, pretty on it.
Yeah, it's the same, but it's kind of flipped because it's the South is. I mean, I could be ignorant in saying this, but the South is generally viewed as like the posher side,
right,
and the North is kind of the more working class.
Yeah. No, well, that was my assumption too. If I misspoke, I apologize. But yeah, I always thought North, sort of the Midlands up was where like all the factories and that sort of thing is, you know, with Liverpool, Manchester, etc. Right?
Yeah. So Newcastle is like just down from Scotland, pretty much. It's the kind of most north city in England before you get to Scotland, essentially. So we all still live in Guildford, which is near London in the south.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. You know, your press release talks so much about this in the beginning. It mentions Newcastle. And so my brain I thought that's where you're up there. So would you consider yourself Geordies?
Yes. Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Okay. Now, is that just a dialect, or is that like a where you're from?
I think both.
Definitely both. Yeah. There's definitely certain personality traits you find with like people from the north, I guess, and that's not to say they're not found in people from the south, but like they're definitely a type of person.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know, like maybe I dig myself a hole, but there's definitely a difference.
No, it makes sense. I mean, Jamie, to me, on the outside, again, being an American, the only thing I really know, this is so pathetic, but the only thing I really know about that area is the freaking movie Braveheart. I mean, I don't know anything about that area. So my brain says, well, it makes sense because culturally, you've had hundreds of years to feel like you've been dominated by, in a sense, the kingdom from the South, right? And I imagine that cultural sort of vibe gets passed down from generation to generation, and that keeps it disparate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially like in England, like I guess this is probably less so with America, but maybe similar. Like everything kind of revolves heavily around London. So like everyone's so like London is the place, like everything's happening in London, and kind of like being so far away, like in Newcastle, you kind of feel very much kind of left out of that in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I ask all these social questions because they form an artist, right? Opposing personal views is kind of what brings the unique tonalities into music and art. And, you know, if you're on the same page all the time, it gets boring. But at the same time, having sort of too much personal dissonance might create great art, but then you spend your time being pissed off all the time, you know? So if I may, my first question, I guess, would be, how have you guys overcome your personal differences to become a band? You know, I mean, is there a common denominator, or have you even figured that out yet?
I would say we're all pretty close, to be fair. Like we are, I mean, obviously we all live together and have done for 7 years.
7 years.
7 years
What?
now.
7 years.
Crazy.
We've lived together for 7 years.
Since we were like 18 through to,
Yeah, since we first moved out. So we're a pretty tightly knit unit. And I think with Alex included, even though being up in Newcastle, like, I would say, like,
Poor
it
Alex.
sounds boring.
Yeah.
It sounds boring, but like we're all pretty close. I think there's not really too much that we're.
Yeah. We all just not. It's not that we just like the same things. It's like there's very little that we each do that annoys each other.
Which is probably quite a unique place to be.
Everyone's kind of quirks kind of fill in the blanks. So to speak. So it just works. It just always has worked. Like since literally day one, since we all kind of like met, it's always been like, this is it. This is like quite lucky because I've spoke to like plenty of other people in other bands where like the relationship isn't as strong, and I feel like we're quite lucky to be in a band where we all really, really like each other for one. But we all kind of feel like we're on each other's wavelength musically and like ability-wise. I don't feel like we're at a stage where anyone's kind of like above anyone ability-wise. It's all just like we all just know each other's boundaries and know what we can and can't do. And then it's like, let's go.
Yeah. So, Alex, do you call them in the middle of the night crying because you're lonely?
Yeah, every day. Yeah, every day. No, to be honest, I've this is only been back home for about almost 2 years now. So it's kind of been quite a big readjustment at first, but I think slowly getting used to things and the distance between obviously us and just really, to be honest, now is kind of the time now that we've got gigs and stuff coming in. You know, it's where we'll soon realize if this will work or not, but I'm pretty confident it will, you know.
Well, I mean, the music proves it's going to work if you can just figure out the logistics of, you know, getting together or continuing to write new material and actually staying close, right? Because being in a band is so hard. I mean, I know you guys know this. There's a lot of compromise. It's like you're married to each other, but you don't necessarily get the benefits of being married. You get all the frustrations of being married, you know. Is that kind of true with you guys? I mean, obviously with, you know, Alex being so far apart, does it feel like, and I don't mean this to be in a mean thing, Alex, but does it feel like, you know, odd man out? Do you feel as close to the others given the physical distance?
Who, me? Do you mean? No,
yes, I'm leaving you hanging to dry, brother.
No, I totally zoned out there for a second. To be honest, but no, to be honest, I don't feel any kind of like odd person out vibes or anything like that. No, it's very much like, you know, when we're together, it's fine. When we're not together, it's also fine.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, well, not that I know of, but there's no sort of bad blood between us or anything like that. So, yeah.
Well, I give you a little bit of grief because honestly, if I were in your band, I would do the same. And it's only because I'm older, I'm married, I have sort of my own weird responsibilities. And it would be easier for me to separate, given that I would just want to know that I've got this great band to come back to, and you have a killer band, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, wow. It's like it's definitely you know, it's nice to know that, like, obviously, you know, whenever I'm sort of down that way, we can get together and work on stuff and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's nice in that respect. Definitely.
Yeah. And to be honest, even if you're not down here, I think with technology these days, like, there's no way that previously this would have been kind of as possible as it is. But I mean, we wrote the entire kind of art
catalog of songs, new catalog of songs. Pretty much recorded that whole thing like in the first lockdown, like remotely in the garage at the bottom of the garden. Yeah. So like I demoed it out and then just got together. I mean, Alex hadn't played any of the songs before we actually went to record them. So it was like, really, let's throw you in the deep end. Learn these.
It's quite a tall order, to be honest. But yeah, somehow we made it work.
Yeah. Well, click tracks help.
Exactly. Yeah, they are your friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know, let's get right to the nitty gritty. I mean, you guys are here to talk about the new music, you know, and what's coming in the near future as well. Steph sounded for a second that she was hesitant to say the catalog might be an album, right? It might be just a set of singles. But I want to start with this. First of all, where did the name Giant Walker come from? Who came up with it, and what does it mean?
Well, yeah, we were trying to come up with band names for a while, and I was kind of looking for things that were like almost like two opposite words kind of together.
Yeah, like a masculine sounding word and then a feminine sounding word, because we didn't want to sound like too brutal.
There's such a fine line of like getting two words that work together that like contrast each other, but like also kind of sound cool. And it's such a hard thing. Like, I think there's a certain type of people who are really good at thinking of names for stuff, and we just aren't those people. So we literally spent so long. But
some people, just come up with such profound like song titles and album titles and like band names and stuff. But yeah, we do struggle.
Yeah, but we were trying to put with ideas to kind of draw from, and I was looking at kind of like mythology and stuff, and I had the idea of like almost like a giant on a leash being like walked by maybe like a small child or something.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Oh, I love that idea. You know, Gojira, you know, of course, you know, taken from the Japanese name, right? It's not actually Godzilla, it's Gojira, right? But what I love about their music as an example is it sounds like their name, if that makes sense. Their music is plodding, it sounds like it's destroying a city. And the thing that's interesting about you guys is your name really does fit. So regardless of the where it came from or the etymology of it, the words actually make sense. I mean, I almost don't want to know what it means, if you will, because you sound like Giant Walker.
Yeah,
that's really good to hear.
That's so funny, because that was actually one of the main things we kind of twigged onto, is that when we were trying to come up with names, we were trying to listen to the songs, and as we were listening to the songs, it was like, okay, is this painting the right picture, and does the name actually sound like this music? Right. So it's actually really, really funny you say that, because it's like we all felt the same. We were like, oh, this sounds like the name.
Right.
Which is cool.
Yeah, you know, when I create what are they called all of a sudden? The thumbnails for the YouTube channel. My brain, as I was showering this morning, getting prepared to talk to you guys, my brain was like, what can I come up with? And the first thing I thought of was like a walker, you know, like an old person walker. Oh, yeah. It's just a giant walker. It's so big they can't hang onto it. Anyway. That's my aside. Steph's like, shut up and get going. Look, I've heard your single, The Fact and Fiction. And as I said before we were rolling, it's fantastic. Being a drummer myself, I hear those rhythms, the syncopation, the way the song rolls, the way the melody weaves in and out. It's absolute audio perfection. I dig it so much, and I beg James to get in touch with you guys. So I'm so grateful you're here. Yeah,
we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Look, I know this. I know the single is actually coming out live in the public in the middle of this month, and obviously that's very exciting. COVID clearly was the isolation that created this, right? It forged a sound in you. I'm wondering how much COVID and maybe the mental aspects of being separated, and how you were sort of forced into creation actually affected you guys to find your collective voice. Can you tell me a bit about your songwriting process in this?
Yeah, well, kind of like I mentioned before, it was very different to perhaps obviously what we'd maybe been tempted to do in the past of just like getting in a room together and jamming it out.
Right.
Because obviously we couldn't.
Right.
So it's almost like kind of that thing of like, sometimes creativity breeds more when you have boundaries.
Yeah.
Because you've got to be kind of more creative about it. And I think we were obviously quite lucky to have the setup that we do in our garage, where we've kind of got a bit of a studio going on, where we could really kind of demo out all the tracks. But I think also what made it quite interesting to the whole process was being able to record the entire thing. So, for example, like when I was coming up with the vocal parts, I would literally hit record as I was listening to the music behind and just literally sing whatever came to my mind. And I think previously we'd be in a rehearsal room and you'd get an idea and then you'd be like, oh yeah, what was that again? And then trying to go back through it. But sometimes that's difficult because then you have your first idea and you're like, oh, that was it, but it wasn't quite exactly the same. And then you can't quite remember what your initial idea was. Whereas obviously what was great, I suppose, about having the kind of record and set up straight away is I could literally hear every idea that I'd had from the moment I stepped in there until the final one that I came up with, which I think is kind of really valuable, I guess, to be able to hear like how it's evolved and which parts you really like from the first kind of the first improvisation to the very end.
Yeah. It's like comedy, isn't it, Steph? Like you just mentioned the word improv. There's this thing that sort of it's hidden inside of you, but it's your voice. It's been there your whole life. And now you finally get layered on top of something that's been created for you, right? I mean, it's really music in a sense that supports your voice. And what's interesting is the voice supports the music. They don't work without each other.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always funny as well. Like when I try to think of like, like almost thinking of like how much like everyone kind of contributes their own thing to the song. And it's like, I mean, this whole kind of writing process has basically been, I'll kind of flesh out just the bare bones of a song and program in drums because Alex is unfortunately not nearby to just record for us. So it'll all be record. Yeah. And then I have to send him over like this kind of botched MIDI file of a drum groove and he has to learn it, unfortunately. But yeah, and it's just interesting because obviously you flesh out the song and then once it's there you kind of put the vocals on it and then everyone kind of takes the parts that I've kind of just scratched out and then runs with them and kind of comes back and goes, I did this instead, hope you don't mind. Right. Kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was kind of strange as well, like I think because in the past obviously we were so used to like all being in a room together and jamming out ideas and writing that way. But this time round, it was kind of like, we'll just like revise the demos, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, going forward, I think we'll probably carry on doing stuff doing stuff that way because I think it works so well, you know? And I didn't mind it at all, really.
Yeah.
Saves money for sure. Rehearsal space and
Yeah, you guys are so fortunate because we live in a time where technology can really benefit this sort of experience, right? I mean, again, I'm much older than you. And when I was your age, I was recording in a studio and forced to sit all day at, at $250 an hour. It was, and that's in the 80s. It's brutal that the cost of that experience. And when you have a producer holding your thumb down and saying, nope, 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 nope. Right. It all you do is get stressed out. So I love what I'm hearing. And it also sounds, Jamie, that you're not sort of overly precious about your ideas. You really believe in the collective songwriting process. Is that true?
To some degree, definitely. I mean,
okay.
I would definitely say I can
see everybody look at you for a second like, bullshit.
I can 100% be a total dick about a particular part, but I guess that's just because, like,
pretty most of all, I suppose, between ourselves, like vocal parts,
or especially because it's funny because as I'm like writing some of this stuff, I'm kind of in the back of my mind. There's melodies kind of just popping into my head every now and again, and then vocal hooks where I'm like, oh, that should definitely be it,
right? And
then I'll come in the next day, go into the studio, and there's like, oh, Steph's recorded some stuff on this. Let's have a listen. And then it's like, no, this isn't what I heard yesterday, kind of thing. But eventually, I mean, that then eventually leads to collaboratively sorting it out.
Yeah,
which is great.
It's the best case scenario. Like if we can both come together on something that's kind of a good middle ground between our ideas. Because I think generally, like, yours tend to be like a bit more hooky, and I'm just trying to put all of the weird notes in.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's hard though, because I'm not normally a fan of like sharing something that's too embryonic, like in its early stages. Like I kind of like to just, if I've got a vision in my head, I'll try and get the whole song to sound like that first, and once I'm like out of ideas, then I'll show it to people, as opposed to like. Because I feel like if you show the idea to people too early, sometimes if you have 4 people in the band that all have really strong visions about where the song wants to go, then to me that's not too helpful, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
because then it's just like,
too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
Yeah,
I mean,
basically.
I know that sounds almost racist, but it's not intended to. It's so true that, you get all these people and these very strong opinions in a room, and that again can create great art, but at what cost? Yeah. Jordan seems to me to be the sentinel in the band.
The sentinel, the anchor.
Is that? Do you believe that's who you are, Jordan? Because there's always a personality as a musician, as an instrumentalist. There's definitely a personality for a singer, a bass player, a drummer, a guitar player. It's just how it is. So if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second and say, what's it like to live with these two? And how much fun is it to play with Alex?
Careful what you say.
I know, right?
It's in misery, isn't it, mate?
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
No, that's great living with you guys. Yeah. I was like, but it's funny actually though, because these guys used to play together in Newcastle quite a lot. So I used to go see these guys live like all the time. And you guys were like always like my favorite kind of like local band.
He's basically the fanboy that ended up in the band.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
Freddie. Yeah.
See, you guys with the new smile, I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's it.
So, Steph, you kind of let through that you have a lot of material sort of in the hopper. Would you say that you guys as a band are focused on singles right now? Is there an actual long player, an album in your future? What's the story on that?
So everything's kind of a bit up in the air, which is why it's kind of reluctant to fully confirm. But yeah, there is an album. There is an album of songs.
An album's worth of material
on the horizon.
Nice.
So should be another single before the end of the year. And then we'll kind of see what happens from there. So
yeah. Are you with is it actually James that Savior is your manager?
Yeah. Yeah, he's acting as we're not officially like on the roster.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay, my apologies. I hope that doesn't get anybody in trouble here.
No, not at all. Not at all. We are. He's working with us as if
he's in development with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So he's your David Foster. He's producing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, speaking of David Foster, I know it's totally random. I just watched his Netflix documentary the other day.
It's amazing.
Good. Yeah, it's really cool.
It's amazing. That the opening, if you guys haven't seen this yet, I mean, it sounds like Alex has, but if you haven't seen it, you have to watch it, because the opening, the first like 2 minutes of it, he basically says, "You don't understand. If you're interviewing me, you're going to have to deal with me." And I started laughing because it's so true. You have to be collectively all in, and you have to completely park your pride in this business, or you're fucked. I mean, flat out, excuse my language, fucked.
Yeah. No, it's definitely I do think you can't and we do this fairly well, I think, is that we don't take ourselves seriously at all. But we take the music quite seriously. But like us as people, we're just like we don't.
Did I just make Alex mad?
Alex, I think it looked like his door opened, and then it was.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe he was like Rob said the F word. I'm out of here.
Yeah, he's offended. He's
back.
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
Sorry. Dropped out there for a second.
The dog went in.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
I did hear a dog bark earlier, so that makes sense.
He was scratching at the door, so I just had to let him down gently, unfortunately.
Yeah. I get you. It's all good. It's all good. So, okay, so back to the singles then. I know there's a lot of things you probably feel you can't say, and that's fine. I'm going to poke you until I get a little bit more information. But is the plan then to connect the singles like through a concept or a release schedule, so we kind of get the full flavor, of Giant Walker eventually?
Yeah, there's definitely, I think one of the things that we were maybe not even intentionally did, but that definitely panned out for the album is the songs very much kind of take you on a journey, and they will kind of bring something slightly different to the table.
Yeah, it's a bit more of it's a bit more of a traditional album format where it's not just like if when we are releasing like a series of singles, but because they are from an album which like Steph says takes you on a bit of a journey, they are all fairly different, like aesthetically quite different. But that's just because of all the music we like and listen to. All of our favorite albums do that. It's not because some albums feel like it's just like great song after great song after great song, and they all sound like kind of like singles almost. Yeah. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying like we've got 3 good songs and the rest are crap. It's definitely like they're all completely
they're all very different.
Yeah. And they definitely I just think it makes for a much more interesting listen as an album. Because it's not just like, oh, this is sounding really samey now. Which I get quite a lot, like with some albums that I really, really like.
Right. So like Queen, you know how Queen was everything was very diverse. You didn't know what you were going to get from song to song. No album, in a sense, sounded like Queen, except every song sounded like Queen, except nothing connected, and yet it all connected. I know I'm being very, very abstract right now, but I love this idea because, I mean, that first track that I heard, if I were to categorize it, I'm going to say you're basically a groove rock, groove metal sort of band, right? There's a groove to what you do. There's a bounce and there's a hop. Is the rest of your stuff, it doesn't have to be the same, but does it have that same general sort of stylistic feel? You know what I mean? Do you feel like Giant Walker already has a voice?
Yeah, definitely. I think
so. Yeah,
with the kind of groove thing.
Yeah, I think like kind of without sounding like cliche, I think like a mission statement of all of our stuff is for people to hear it and think like, yeah, that sounds like yous. You know what I mean? I think that's something we always strive for.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love that. And I can tell you guys get along so well, and you generally like to rib each other, which is a good thing. And the fact that I get to pick on Alex because he lives somewhere else is just wonderful for me. So
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah.
You know,
time I'm doing this. No, I'm kidding.
You know, nowadays everybody's releasing work on vinyl. You know, trying to do something fancy. You know, some crazy visual release. Are there any plans to when you finally get enough singles out? Are you gonna drop it all on something crazy and have this really awesome sort of merch approach to your future?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually got I don't know if I should say this actually, but we've got the artwork for our album already done.
Okay.
So that
Catalog of songs.
Sorry, catalog of songs.
James is gonna tell me I can't release this whole thing.
So
to be fair,
yeah.
Oh man. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm going to put this show out in a couple weeks, or sooner than later if possible. But if you guys can get me that artwork, I wouldn't mind. You know, I'll have to ask James for that. He probably will say no.
I was going to say you can edit this, right? You can take all
yeah.
All the controversy.
Yeah. It's just going to be like, and thank you for being on the show. Well, okay, so let me ask this question then about James, and because I know he'll hear this. You know, how did you guys connect? Did he see a show? Did you reach out to somebody in the industry and you got connected with him? I mean, he's kind of a heavyweight, so I'm curious how you guys connected.
So initially, we actually played a show with Black Orchid Empire, who's obviously under Saviour Management.
Yep.
That was back in 2019, actually, and
we were just as local support.
Yeah, local support on the gig. We got on really well with the guys in Black Orchid Empire. They're super canny.
Yeah.
And they basically said then, like, we'll pass on your details to our manager James. Like, you guys are sick. Nice. We think he'd be interested. So we basically shot him an email then, and he kind of just said, "Look, guys, I don't have too much space at the moment on my roster, but I'll keep you guys in mind." So then once we finished the album, and had kind of all of the songs back, insane album again.
You did it. It's funny because Steph, when you said that, Jordan went
just
like, dude, knock it off. It's fine. We all know it's an album. It's all cool. We're good, man. It's all good. If you weren't putting enough material out there, you don't deserve to be heard anyway, right? If you only write one song, you kind of deserve what you get. So I'm glad you've written a lot of stuff. It's good.
So when we finished the catalogue of songs, I obviously sent them over to James, and he got back in touch and obviously said he was digging them.
Just like the stuff,
yeah. Well, I mean, when you get down to it, you brought him, a fairly completed work, right? I mean, really, when you get down to it,
I do think that makes a difference. Like having
our vision,
the product,
we
shall say, like done. Essentially, and just I think that helps a lot with people that want, because we've always for the longest time wanted to kind of get someone on board to help us, like just try and do things, I guess. But I think not a lot of people listen to you when, again, like you say, you've got one song out or you've got a small EP. I think people take you a bit more seriously when you've actually invested into it, because then they know, like, oh well, you've actually invested time and money into this project, so you clearly are passionate about what you're doing,
right?
And I think just have a real kind of sense of direction with it all, and I think like Jamie was saying, like we've had other projects before where everything's just kind of been like just chuck everything together and then just release it. Kind of chuck it at the world, because it's kind of like once it's
we couldn't sit on something like if we had it, as soon as we got the mixed and mastered song back, it was like, this needs to go out next week because people need to hear it now,
right
kind of thing. And then there would be no momentum, there'd be no kind of and we'd all be really happy with it, but then it'd be like, it's out now.
Well,
let's write another one.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and I
No,
mean,
this is the
and
first
as an
time.
artist, it's really hard because as artists, we want people to hear our material because honestly, pathetically, we kind of need people to hear our material. We kind of need to feel good about what we've created. We want to know we've hit the zeitgeist somehow, right? We've connected with somebody. And the faster that happens, the more motivating it is for us to keep moving.
yeah.
Definitely.
You know,
Yeah.
the best quote I ever heard about a band was an old tutor at the ACM, and he said bands are like sharks. If they don't move, they die.
Yes, so true.
And I was like, you know what it is? That is literally it. Like if the worst feeling as a band is feeling like you're not doing anything. It's like, and there's nothing on the horizon, because then you're just like, oh well, you're just itching to do anything.
Yeah. So true. So true. You know, excuse me, Steph, you made me sick.
Yeah.
You're working with Chris Coulter as well?
Yeah. So this is kind of, as I was just saying before, this is the first time we've kind of properly had the chance to record. And I say properly, and with someone like Chris, who is absolutely awesome,
a legend.
Yes, a true legend. Who just really understood kind of what we wanted to do with the whole album, and kind of took the demos that we had and just like was like
made them better.
This is what you want to do. Okay, here it is. So yeah, that was really great.
Yeah,
That's
awesome. It was great, to be honest. I mean, he put us through our paces as well, like especially like just making sure that all the takes and stuff were like, we're really, really happy with them. And because I think in the past, you know, time's always been a massive factor for us, and like getting everything like done in a day or 2 days or something was always the goal. But
stressful.
Now it's stressful, and having more time to like sit on a take and listen, like really, really listen to it and think, right, is everything kind of working? And you know, Chris was just amazing with that as well. So it was great.
Yeah. And well, you know, and Alex, you said something that made me reminded me of my past. And again, I'm not talking about myself here, but I think about the drum approach, and I think about the requirement of a recording to sort of almost be technically perfect, right? There's so much pressure on a drummer, especially when you're writing the material you're writing, which I don't want to say it's difficult, but it's, you know, it's full of anticipation. Again, it's a very rhythmic style that you guys are playing, and if it's not spot on, it falls apart. You know, that da da ba da da ba da. It has to happen like that. and I'm curious, did Chris did he make you re-record? I mean, were you recording as a band in those moments, or was it just drums? You know what I mean? And maybe even quantizing parts, because look, we're human. We're gonna be imperfect sometimes.
I think in terms of how we actually recorded it, it was a case of we brought the scratch tracks to Chris, and then from there each did our own individual things. But drum wise, I think, you know, we got everything wrapped up in about 2.5 days, I think.
Great.
It was 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah,
we got everything. The catalog. But yeah, I mean, it was obviously, it was a little bit stressful at that time as well, because like Jimmy mentioned before, you know, I hadn't actually played about 90% of the tunes on the collection of songs. So it was kind of like, you know, it was like going into rehearsal for the first time with a band you've never met. That's kind of what it felt like in a way. So, you know, on the, like that entire sort of few days before, I was just, you know, like making mental notes and like, right, okay, that bit there, I'll do this there, and sort of thing. And some of those ideas come to fruition. A lot of them didn't, because you know, it's just the way things went. But yeah, it was all in all probably the sort of most happy I've been personally with like a drum performance as a whole. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think one thing you were saying just there as well about like having ideas and stuff, I think what we're finding is like we will come in with like these grand ideas, and actually often it's kind of just stripping it back and letting the song kind of breathe a bit. That generally has the best outcome.
It's kind of that. It's kind of that thing. Whereas it's like everyone in the band has the hugest sound, no one gets heard.
Yeah,
it's that same thing. It's like you need to know when you you need to know where you sit with everything. And Alex, I mean, we're incredibly lucky to have Alex because he is genuinely a very, very, very good drummer.
Very good.
We're very we're very happy.
You're making us blush, mate.
No, seriously, man. Like I remember there was a moment we recorded the first song. And I can say this because obviously I can blow smoke up his ass, but he can't.
I'm not allowed to do.
He's been trying for years, though.
Yeah. But I remember we started recording the first song, laid down the drum track, and obviously just went for a pass. It was like, okay, rolling, like we're going. And then you got halfway through the song, and then Chris just started laughing like to himself, and it was like kind of looking, and he was just like kind of like.
Like, what
sounds
the hell?
Great. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sounds great. It was almost like, it was just really nice to see because it was like, oh, hang on, this guy knows what he's doing. And he's like, we're not crap. Like, it was kind of that.
Yeah.
Like, yay.
No, it's obvious you're not crap. He was prepared for the moment. I mean, you clearly are all prepared for the moment. And I'm sure, we've been joking about it for a bit here, but, when you're living together, you can't help but sort of create this sort of intimate way of being together right? Because, I mean, you're literally living in rhythm, if that makes sense. I know that sounds really sort of out there, very new agey, but I mean, as a drummer, that's how I see life anyway. It's a series of different rhythms and sometimes they connect and sometimes they don't. But when they connect, they really connect because you guys understand each other intrinsically. And I think, I mean, when I heard Giant Walker, I was like, oh, like I'm so used to getting stuff from promo companies that are average at best. And there's so much predictability. Lots of, everybody's doing metalcore and everybody's screaming at the top of their lungs. And there's some great metalcore out there, but most of it's just, crap, if you will. And I don't mean to be mean. At least it's crap to me. It's not my taste. But Giant Walker is really lovely. There's two things. You said something a second ago, and if I can, I don't want to make this about me, but there was two things I heard in life that were, they were their quotes, but they're ideas. And one came from Phil Collins, from Genesis. And he said, the only thing that matters in a song to me is how much space there is, not how many notes there are.
Yeah.
And if you listen to In the Air Tonight, it's the longest, in a sense, slowest, right? It's the longest buildup forever. He's basically done a drop, you know what I mean? Like a bass drop, but he did it 40 years ago. Right?
Yeah, man.
And then Prince was the other one. Prince used to tell his band before they came out on the show, to perform, he said, everybody think 50%. That was his mantra. Think 50%. And what that means is slow down everything. Slow your heart rate down. Slow your breathing down. Start the song at 50% of what you think it's supposed to start, and you'll be correct because your adrenaline always gets in the way of the flow.
Yeah.
And I was like, that makes sense. There's so much soul in the Giant Walker sound because it has groove and it has bounce and the songs don't rush. So freaking badass.
Thank you. That's definitely, it's funny you mentioned that as well, because that is 100% something that we very consciously think about. It's like when building, and it is almost like constructing a groove, because there's so many things that, like, it's like a jigsaw. Like there's so many things that kind of like contribute to something that feels really good. Like when you listen to it, a groove isn't just a drum groove. It's everything kind of
it's the whole,
it's like
thing.
If the perfect example is, for me, is Rage Against the Machine. Like, to me, they're probably one of the heavy-est bands going for me personally anyway. But that's just because if you listen to like Bulls on Parade or like Killing in the Name Of, it's the whole rhythm section and everyone just like, it's the whole thing's just swinging back and forth, and it's not necessarily tight. It's just they're just grooving. They've all got a pocket that they sit in, and that's what makes it heavy. That's to me, the heaviness is in the groove. It's not in the sounds or the vocal. Like loads of people are like, like really dirty vocal, which is sick. I like it, but there's much more to be explored, I guess.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect because another band that does that or did that is Stone Temple Pilots. There was that song Plush that came out, I want to say in 92 or 93. And at the end of a phrase, they would go, dan, dan, dan. And it sounded like they were retarding. But the reality is no, they were just in their space and it was imperfect. But somehow it worked because they'd rehearsed it so many times. Gojira's like that. They play live and they're kind of all over the place, but it's so tight in its looseness. It's insanely heavy.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between tightness and then intention and conviction. Everyone on the same wavelength but playing it with conviction is, and I think that's a big part of what makes bands sound heavy and human, kind of thing. Because no one's metronomically perfect. It's literally impossible. So,
and even if it is like you say, like when you're if you're playing to a click live and it's all very just in time, and
if everyone's listening to the click, if everyone's listening to a click, then it's you're not listening to each other.
Yeah.
Then you're a church band.
Yeah.
I mean, for real. Sorry, churches. A couple more questions for you, if I may.
Go for it.
What has the industry taught you about getting your voice in, getting your voice out there? What have you had to overcome? What's the difficulties of being in a band in this modern record industry?
That's a question and a half, isn't it?
That's a loaded gun.
I think they're
I'm gonna have to edit this part out too. So
no.
I think for first thing that comes to mind, I think is just it sounds cliche, but it's just kind of we always try and be the kind of the nicest version of ourselves, inside and outside of music as well. So I think it's always that mantra. It's be a nice person off and off stage. So personality wise, we've all kind of had to maybe grit our teeth at times and get through stuff and but still kind of remain a level head and all that sort of stuff. So I think we always try and sort of get the best out of what might be a shit situation,
of which there've obviously been many, especially when you do the classic, we've done a few toilet tours. I believe the exact the name of them are where it's, and you turn up and stuff that should be isn't. And
speakers are blowing,
or the PA isn't powered, or they can't do this, they can't do that, which it's not like people ask a lot, really. It's if there's a working PA there, we would have just played there. We didn't care. But even at that level, there would still be you get there and things a set gets cut short, or a band turns up and kind of are a bit
ask to borrow all your stuff.
Yeah.
I think on the other side of things as well, it's just kind of patience, I would say, similar to what I spoke about before, is just kind of like Jamie said, with our previous projects, we've kind of been just record it, and then you just so desperate for people to hear it that it just okay, let's just release it. And I think hindsight has obviously taught us that actually, I think especially with this catalogue of songs, because we're so happy with how it's turned out, and because we've had obviously the opportunity to kind of really record it and get it to the stage where it's really captured what we wanted it to.
Well, not only that, but to actually double check that everyone in the band is happy with it. I think that's a big one. But previously, because things were kind of, I don't want to say rushed. I mean, they kind of were rushed, but they were kind of just last minute, or it was we have to get this done today because this is the only bit of studio time we've got for another month, let's say. So it's like, this has to get done today for it to reach this deadline. And then by doing that, and then you eventually listen to it back, and let's say the mix comes back and you're just not really vibing it or whatever, then to actually be like, yeah, you know what, like this needs to change and we need to do this again or whatever, instead of being like, no, the song will shine through this shitty production.
I think it's just being
or whatever.
Being
and
kind of
when
honest.
It just doesn't, like, the production is such a massive part of how a song feels and translates, and it's kind of like, I think if it's quite a stripped back acoustic thing, then I don't think the production matters as much. But again, coming back to this groove kind of thing, to make everything sound like it's really driving, like it has to, well, I'm not saying it has to be super produced at all, but it just has to sound like big. It can't just, it can't just sound small. And double checking that everyone's happy with stuff like that is quite a big thing.
Yeah, and just being honest that we're like, actually, is this?
Yeah, being brutally honest with it, like, is this actually good?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really, realistically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to evolve anyway, though, right? I mean, when you get down to it, you've had your whole life to write these sets of songs. You're a new thing. The world doesn't know about you. So you get this one moment to sort of drop this beautiful bomb on people. So, I mean, so there is a lot, right? There's a lot at stake here, especially, I mean, because you're an artist, you're like, this is my child. This is everything. I've committed to living a certain way so I could get this material out, and I want it to be as good as possible. But I mean, if it kind of goes back to when Steph was, writing melodies that she's singing. I mean, the bottom line really with this, Jamie, is you have to, as a band, you have to trust that what you're doing makes sense, that it will connect with an audience. You know what I mean? And that really the bottom line, I think the end result, the only thing that matters is you four. Because if you four continue to create what you're creating, you'll thin that herd. Your audience finds you. If you're trying to appeal to everybody, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure.
That's the title of the show.
To add that as well, though, like, I feel like if, especially because we all like each other's music tastes, and we all think we have good music taste.
Yeah.
So if we all like a song we've created, then we feel like, our judgment is good enough to, see
because it is.
It's a good song. Yeah.
I suppose only you know you. I mean, again, we're hearing this all for the first time. If I hadn't spoken to you today, I wouldn't know what what pleasure it is to talk to you guys. I wouldn't know how much fun you are, but I would still love the material. You would still be elevated. What's interesting about music today is it's released on YouTube, or it's released via Bandcamp or on Facebook and all these social media platforms, and 1 billion people see them almost instantly. But if it doesn't connect, there's so many voices out there, you're gone like that. And so you have to be pure for yourself. You can't worry about what we're all thinking. But if little Rob, in little Snoqualmie, Washington in the United States, 8,000 miles away from you, hears your material and goes, wow, that's special. I mean, if I were an A&R guy, I'd be taking you to a label today. You guys are really, really special.
Oh man,
yeah, thank you.
Much appreciated, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that's the dream, I guess. Is again, I think there was a cool Josh Homme quote where it was kind of like, if you expect anything from music, you expect too much.
Yep.
And I think that's the bottom line, is that regardless of what anyone thinks of the songs, the bottom line is that this is by far the most proud any of us have ever been about something musically in our lives. So even if someone came to us and said, listen to the first single, I absolutely hated it, it could be like, well, I loved it, so it doesn't matter, like, and so you can't really think about that stuff too much.
I know I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
There we go.
As your new friend, I caution you highly to not listen to anyone, to only listen to your management and to listen to your hearts. and to be who you are, because nobody knows what they're talking about. They really don't. The average, and I don't mean, this is not a knock. This is not a people are stupid quote. That's not what I mean. But people are easily impressed with the simplest things. But everybody in the world sees art, whether it's a television show or it's music, they see it through the lens of their own life at that moment. If I hadn't heard your first single a couple of weeks ago, if I only heard it today, not only would I not be prepared, but I might find that I didn't like it because maybe I didn't wake up on the right side of the bed this morning, right? And because we never know where anybody's at. I mean, I just beg you, I implore you, because you're truly a gifted quartet, just stick to your guns, be you at all costs. And, now that you have trusted management, you have trusted relationships in the business with a collection of songs at your disposal, things are going to work out for you if you just hold true to who you are.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely think, like you said, like sometimes you just kind of listen to something on that specific day and it kind of doesn't speak to you. And I think there's a lot of songs or a lot of artists even that I absolutely love now that I've actually listened to on first listen. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm not really vibing it. I'm just not 100%. And then you go back to it next day and you're like, yeah, not. And then a few months later you re-listen to it and you're like, oh my God, how did I ever not like this? Mm. So it's a funny thing. Like it's so fluid, I think, in that sense. Like, yeah, it really does depend on the day and just and what you hear. And I think also, I think something that we overlook is kind of personal recommendation really kind of sways your, like, influences you, even though you might not think about it. Because I think if someone kind of personally says like, oh my God, you guys would really like this, you kind of just make more of an effort, don't you, to kind of like it underneath that. But
but you need a million people to do that. I mean, you need a million people to go, hey, you got to listen to this Giant Walker thing, because I don't know what it is, man, but it's new. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My last question for you. What would it take for you to believe that you've had a successful career? That the band is worthy of being remembered?
That's a deep question.
We should all answer this individually.
Yeah, you should all answer this.
For me,
I'm just trying not to think of a stupid answer, really.
It's a funny one because I try not to think of the band as a career, because I feel like careers aren't fun generally.
It's a setup. It's also a setup for failure, right? Like if it doesn't break or whatever, right?
Yeah, and it's weird. It's a funny thing because a band's kind of something that it's like a relationship that you don't want to end. But for whatever reason, it probably most bands end eventually. So yeah, it's one of those things. But I don't know, career wise, I think just if I can speak to like a couple of people and they all say, I listened to your song, or I listened to your album, or I listened to your, I listened to this and it really like changed my day. Like, or it made me feel like so much better after listening to it. I think that is success enough for me, because that's kind of mission accomplished. It's like someone's seen a bit of themselves in something you've wrote and like kind of catharsized through it and then made their life better. And again, like it's because I know how important certain songs have been to me throughout my life. Like they are literally friends that age with you. And the more like you can always listen to an old friend, like an old song, and be like, man, like I remember exactly where I was the moment I heard that. And if someone can feel that way to like something I've wrote, then
I think also like
that's great.
Like kind of coming on from that, like I think that's the reason like music is so powerful, I guess, because of the impact that it can have. And Yeah, I guess.
It locks in
That's
a moment.
that's my answer. That's my everyone else's answer. That's mine.
Don't think top it.
Yeah,
I
Jordan.
would like
Jordan.
to sell 1 million records.
Jordan,
Oh man, ditto, right?
make loads of money.
Be
Yeah,
famous
it was-
driving Cadillacs. Yeah, it's all.
Yeah.
When I'm throwing a TV out of a hotel window.
Yeah. Having a posse. You know, all the cool things. So great. No, Jordan. Okay, we got to hear from you, buddy. We got to hear from you.
Ah man. To be honest, I mean, it's again without kind of being on the same wavelength. I think it's pretty much the same thing. Really. Like, I don't know. It's the same to me, really. I'd say. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, if I had to say something different, I guess it would just be kind of like doing some kind of sick tour, live shows. I don't know.
I think,
Like you say, a crowd of people who are really, really, really vibing it and really on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Mm.
I imagine a festival tour, or at least festival experiences in the future, I think are the thing that's going to ultimately, help break you in the public. It's gonna give you that stage experience, that bigger stage. And you're gonna get that feel, you're gonna get that vibe right from the audience, because those audiences are much larger. And you're gonna, I don't know what's the word. You're organically going to grow. You can't help in those environments. But I think that's how you're gonna find your passion, your purpose, if you will. Because, I mean, again, the internet is clouded with great bands. I mean, there's a lot of great bands, but you guys have made the right start because you have, these amazing relationships, and you have this collection of songs. So I think we're in for a treat. So again, my honor that you guys came today. I mean, I love what I'm hearing. I'm so inspired by you guys, and you're proof that great things happen in the middle of nowhere. So thank you very much.
Thanks.